On this episode of The Career Musician, we have Bill Oakley, who is the senior product manager at Shure Microphones, but also a front of house engineer, tour manager, and production manager, amongst many other things. First and foremost, he's a musician. Second, a songwriter and a DJ. But perhaps most importantly, what all of us career musicians need to keep in mind is that it takes a team. And let me tell you, when you have Bill Oakley on your team, you are fierce because he is one of the strongest players. The show must go on. The show cannot go on without a tech guru such as Bill Oakley. Right here on The Career Musician. Check it out. Mr. Bill Oakley, welcome to the Career Musician Podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Finally, good to be here.
It is great to have you as well, my friend. All right, so much to dive into, and for those listening, I'm going to give you a quick little backstory. Bill Oakley and I go way back, actually through my wife, my now wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, but Bill and my wife Lola, you guys were like best friends over at Center Staging, the premier rehearsal studios here in Burbank.
Correct.
Why don't you, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I mean, she just basically, felt bad for me as the new guy to the California coast. So she felt pity on me.
You were from Chicago.
From Chicago, moved out there April Fool's Day of 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
My first day in the office was I think the next day or so. And, Lola came in the back door and saw someone in the office that had been sitting there, built out and empty, and introduced herself, and went on from there.
The rest is history. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're with Shure, the big microphone company. Well, you guys do a lot more than microphones, but obviously everybody
these days, yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows you as microphones. So, okay, so you had an office at Center Staging as a rep for Shure. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the second regional office. The first was in Nashville at Soundcheck there, run by Ryan Smith. He was kind of the first who laid the ground within the company of kind of showing the value of having that sort of office. Ryan had history in that area, so it made sense. He kind of proposed to the company a reason to put an office back in his home area, and of course, it proved itself 10 times fold. And the director at that time of artist relations or industry relations was Tom Krajewski. He was, of course, very close with everyone out in LA and doing a lot of traveling back and forth. And it just makes sense that you need to have a place in LA. And I think at the time they were looking at either LA or New York for obviously theater purposes. But with the roadmap of products that were being developed at that time, LA made more sense. I was getting kind of burned out in the position I had at the company at that time, and applied for it. It was somewhat mentioned, and I applied for it and went for it. Came out with Tom and visited a few of his contacts, and he kind of just observed how myself and the other gentleman, who came on a different trip, who was also at the company, just observed how we did things, so to speak. And for whatever reason, Tom chose me.
There you go. Bam. All right. So I want the focal point to be pretty heavy on the fact that you have been, and now you're so much more than that. Well, we're going to get there. But the artist relations aspect of what it means to a career musician.
Sure.
Now, a couple things that I always say. Number one, in this business, much like really any business, it's all built on relationships.
It is. And
it's actually in your job title, artist relations, right? It's the relationship.
And my title then was it was artist relations, but it was much more than that. It was the industry. So the relations aren't just with artists, whether they be, the Grammy winning ones, or the MDs or whatever, but it would have been the recording studios, the production houses of movie theater, of movie sets, the theaters. Like, it was really more about the industry. But being that Shure is an audio musician company, the title was under artist, but it's so much more than that. As are the artists. There's so much more than whatever they're doing when I met them. Right.
Right. Well, and that's a great point. I'm so glad you brought up the industry as a whole because it's much larger than just doing bands and microphones.
Yeah.
You're outfitting, theaters with sound systems, and there's so much tech involved with what you do.
There is.
So take us down that lane for a minute and talk to us about the evolution of your responsibilities at Shure.
Well, I mean, just some quick background. So prior to taking that gig, I was handling the phono industry of all things. So my experience with artists or doing the relations actually goes even further back to having my own production company in college and dealing with artists and booking agents and managers and whatnot. So throughout being responsible for the phono, the DJ cartridges within Shure globally, I met a lot of people in that industry, whether it be local turntablists or bigger names like, Funkmaster Flex, or, Grandmaster Flash or Grand Wizard Theodore, legends in the scratch community. So,
Wow.
While they are artists and they are legends and they are musicians, that was my introduction to working with people who were just good people. Like they weren't rock stars. I thought they were rock stars, but they weren't rock stars in the Rolling Stone magazine sense or the cover of whatever, right? But they were just down to earth, great people, talented, influential, and were responsible for history making things. And through the DJ, I met hip hop people. I'm talking legendary. When I say hip hop, I don't mean the stuff that is whatever's on TikTok or the radio right now. I mean real hip hop, right? And meeting guys like that and Cool Herc and all those legendary folks. So that was my circle of indirectly meeting artists, not because necessarily I was doing relations for the company, but I was in and around those people. So that's why I believe one of the reasons why when Tom wanted me to take on a more mainstream position, obviously working with major artists that are pop coming up new every week, he needed someone that could handle themselves in that environment and not get starstruck, not be the one who wants to get photos. And it's true. I mean, honestly, I met a lot of great artists, and some of them I've become good friends with. I would argue most of them I'm good friends with are the older generation, the old schooler cats.
Yeah.
But most of the people that I thought were the greatest people were the ones around the artists, and you learn a lot about an artist based on the people they have around them when it comes to that AAA level attention. But they're just people. They're not, they're just people.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I love that. The reason why I focus on the relationship so much is because oftentimes musicians fall into the trap of, oh man, let me get some free gear. What can I get free? And I'm like, yeah, let's not focus on the gear and what you can get. Let's focus on building a solid foundation with people whom you like that work at the companies whose gear you like to use. So for instance, I'm going to use Shure microphones because I love their product versus, Shure's going to give me an artist deal, but Rhodes won't. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you have to look at that in two very, obviously there's two sides of that coin, right? You've got the manufacturer and you've got the artist. So from a manufacturer perspective, I was obviously very lucky to be at a brand that was legendary in its own right. It was high quality in its own right. And to most people, you mention that name, there's a gravitas that comes with it, to the point where I would argue anyone who has a Shure business card within reason could flash it to someplace and get in, which I have done. I remember going to London, seeing a great show on London Broadway, and noticing that they were using some Shure wireless, and I just wanted to see the setup. I literally went around to the backstage, flashed my card. They went and grabbed the production manager, and I got a full after show tour of the whole production of the set. I can't remember the show, but I mean that having that brand associated to you is great, and it's also a responsibility. And what was great about the culture at Shure, and having learned that from people who were 1 degree separation from the founder, Mr. Shure, that really set me up for realizing that, not being in any kind of arrogant way, but we are Shure, we have the best stuff, and we don't need to be giving it away to just anyone.
That's right.
And we want to be able to choose the people who are going to acknowledge that, respect that, and equally value that. and not just want free stuff, right?
That's right.
And that is something that comes with, I guess, just having a good sense of knowing people and kind of gauging and knowing, figuring out who they are, asking the right questions, being a good gauge of character. Um, and that can come from obviously how they approach you. If my first introduction is, how do I get free stuff, like at a NAMM show and they're walking up to the booth, right? Or the circle they keep. Yeah. Or they may be like, hey, I just bought this and I need help with it, and then you realize, well, they made a purchase, so that's an awfully good sign,
right?
So yeah, so that's the artist, that's the manufacturer side. Now there are brands that, because they need to get their product out there, they treat it as a promotional tool, right? Give product away, do press, get people to notice, sell more stuff. And that is still true for Shure. The only difference is Shure being Shure, we could be a lot more selective. And honestly, the budget that I had was low. It was not what people would perceive. So I don't think a lot of the people we supported really understood like how limited that list of opportunities I could give out in a given fiscal year was. And it was penny pinching because we had to maximize what we were given, and there is no money if you go over budget. Like you get problems. So that's right. I think some brands have to do more things, and we have competitors that do things differently with us, and that's fine. And some of our competitors are outstanding. I mean, I own some competitor microphones. I've used them because they create the sound that I want, especially if it's a hip hop sound. I can think of some AT mics, for example, that I really love the way they crack when being used on percussion instruments. So. So on the artist side, and me being, me understanding and, what they need. And, if I were going to be a musician, if I kept that up in my career, I would have probably been the same way. I know they want gear because they got a budget, but you have to be willing to ask for stuff that you would support and be willing to buy anyways. Yes. And just getting free gear is not the driving factor. And there's an old school thing that people used to say, and we never did this, but it was a joke. We talked about it at NAMM. And NAMM. The amount of spandex that's at that show is enough to coat the world. But people would come and they could provide their press pack, and I understand it. It's a huge opportunity to get yourself in front of a lot of potential brands. And I honestly believe that the people who came by, liked all the brands they visited, even if they went from the Shure booth to the Sennheiser booth. However, if they come to my booth, they meet me, provide me a press pack, say all the things that they how much they love the brand. The joke was we would watch them walk down the hallway and then turn into the next competitor of microphone company,
Do the same thing. Yeah.
And that's fine. I get it. But as a result of that really isn't the way you should then be doing it, because we know the game as well.
That's right.
That's right. I always respected the people who did it differently. The ones who didn't, who knew that we knew.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is, just being real, Yeah. And my office was an open door. Why wait for NAMM?
That's right.
Just come into the office.
Just call us up, make an appointment. Yeah.
Don't even make an appointment.
Really?
Just stop by.
Oh, that's right. Because you were at Center Staging all those years. Yeah, just stop by.
And there were so many people that just stopped by.
There you go. And see,
hi.
That's the relationship aspect. They're just being human. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, just come. Hey, man, I got a lunch break. Mind if I come in here and hang out and eat lunch? Like, yeah, I got my lunch too. And we would just eat over lunch. No agenda.
Yep.
Just
shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, some of the best relationships I have were not actually, none of them were from meeting at NAMM, and stuff like that, because everyone's is on high alert there.
That's right.
But it is just being, real. And I tried to help a lot of artists, who wanted or needed, I should say, actually, support from other products. And they were diehard fans of those products. And I tried to explain how I do things and, tried to guide them. And, okay, I can't speak for that brand and how they do things, but I recommend this is how you go about approaching them. And they have the same challenges I'm going to have. If they have a limited budget, how are you going to shine? How are you going to show your value? Because in the end, whatever they support you with, they need to translate into sales in the end.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So you mentioned quite a bit there. So I want to unpack some.
Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. I love it. I love working like this. So we just go back and analyze some points here. One of the things you did say, and that's the reason why you're on the show, because you are a musician as well. And mind you, I've had quote unquote non-musicians who are still affiliated with the industry, and
Oh, sure.
it's still applicable to what we're doing here. But one of the reasons why I like working with you so much. Now, Bill and I brought him on as I guess the substitute production
Correct.
manager
Correct.
for Kenny Babyface Edmonds on the team. I was the music director there for a decade, and finally got Bill on the team. We had to jump through quite a few hoops to make it happen, but we made it happen. And then you were the substitute production manager and front of house mix engineer, and then also I guess you're substituting as the tour manager too. So you have lots of experience in different capacities, different job titles.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
production manager, front of house engineer, tour manager, product
Monitors.
developer,
Yep.
artist relations. But it all started, like you said, I believe your affinity, you started as a musician or as a DJ. So talk about that.
Actually, going back further, I started as a classically trained violinist when I was 4 with Suzuki
Bam.
method.
Even
I had
better.
perfect pitch as a child, evidently,
Wow.
which is surprising that is a depreciating talent. I remember in college, I started losing it.
Yeah.
Right around when I started being at really loud DJ raves. Anyway, yeah, so started as a violinist because Suzuki method. So my first violin was a thin square Kleenex box and a ruler and a stick. And then I moved up to the little tiny violins and everything after that, and did little recitals in the area and performed solos with the local chamber groups and around. I was too young to actually join the local symphony because they actually had a rule on age, even though I was competent. Wasn't really challenged much, obviously, through the public music system. I had a great Suzuki teacher, competed as wherever I could and what I could, but it was hard in a rural town of Wisconsin to really get exposed and challenged to things. And the biggest challenge exposure I got was from a family friend in Switzerland who knew of a school in the mountains in the Alps. I think it was at a monastery. And I twice went there for a month, 2 summers, and basically was in deep with hardcore classical monastery monks teaching us music.
That's cool, man.
And I mean, it was 24/7, sleep, eat, drink for a month, no phones, no. I mean, I think actually the electricity was even limited. So I just went to the Alps for two sessions.
And how old were you during that time?
I was 10. That was 10 and 11.
Yeah, that's an intensive study program for a 10-year-old.
Yeah, well, but that was what I needed because I wasn't getting it as great as the public school systems were at that time for music.
Right.
Yet at my, what I needed more, and that was great. And then the other so that was life changing in a way because it finally got me to a level where I was like, oh, there's more I can do. Like it's a drag when you have talent, you don't know it, but you have it. And you can see this in people all the time and they're just not being challenged. And it's a shame. So that was life changing. Obviously I went twice, kept in touch with a girl I met there, even as an 11-year-old, the second time it was cool afterwards. And then the second life-changing thing, which I actually just recently reached out to her and said hello, was we had Daryl S. come by our school. And she is a session and touring and recording violinist for Depeche Mode, REM, a lot of names, right? And she's actually in the Chicago area. And I just reached out to her a few weeks ago, feeling a little nostalgia. And she came by our high school and just did a demo with a violin and a MIDI box. So this is my first time seeing MIDI. And she made her violin sound like anything but a violin. Right. Birds chirping, saxophone. So now I can attach my boring classical, availability of experience to now something technical. And it was off to the races.
I was gonna say that's where it sounds like the technology bug bit you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just being around and classical and bands and stuff like that. That's how I got into. I was in did percussion and marching band and did a little bit in college and yeah. And then unfortunately, there were some opportunities that didn't pan out because of just poor professors. At the same time, I was doing the DJ thing, which I started in 6th grade. Went to Europe for a year as a junior in high school. Got into the German rave scene in Berlin and stuff like that. So
Wow.
I was heavy into electronic music there, and of course, me being who I was hanging out with both the people DJing, but as well as the guys who were doing the live sessions, producing the music, with all their keyboards and their crazy moogs around. Then of course, hanging out with the production people. So I got exposed to the entire aspect of that musical culture as a junior. Came back to high school, finished my senior year. None of that stuff existed around here. Went to college and basically started my own production company. And especially since I was in Germany drinking where it was acceptable, I came back to college and I'd been there, done that, don't need to do it. But now I'm around a bunch of people who are experiencing, what it's like to be drunk for the first time. So rather than join them, I just threw the parties and made money off of them.
That's brilliant. So now you're acting as a promoter too.
And I graduate college in the black.
Look at that.
In 3.5 years. So
wow, because you were promoting parties and charging.
Worked my ass off. Yeah, I was throwing raves. Yeah, basically.
And you paid off college before you even graduated.
Oh yeah, I was just using the money from the raves. So we had partnered with a buddy and worked with him in a record store the last final year of college. But yeah, I mean, I was basically, throwing events, doing the bookings, doing the production, figuring out the talent and the order I want to have them play in the party to run that whole. I mean, drugs were around, right? Everyone was doing stuff, so you have to kind of curate the night to make sure that ride is done the way it needs to be done. Wow. So you're curating things, you're picking artists and putting them on a certain time for a reason. I was performing myself, traveling around the country, under a nomiker and performing as well. I was literally backstage writing papers before I went on stage wherever I was in like Bozeman, Montana, for example, at a barn with like 3,000 people in it. So I was performing, doing the production. So I was working 24/7 for 3.5 years, doing that whole thing.
What was your DJ moniker?
Eccentrics with a capital X on both ends.
Eccentric. I like it.
So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't care for the attention. So it was a weird thing to do. But I did it, but I was happy to stop performing because I didn't like that.
Okay, well, and that brings me to my next point. Now, again, with my wife Lola, who her birth name is Danielle, her artist name is Lola. So sorry, I keep wanting to say Danielle, but and I know you do too. It's funny, but you worked with her when she was Danielle in the studio, and you guys were writing and producing together as well.
Well, what was fun is that I hadn't done any of that in a long time, and I've always wanted to, but where I'd been coming from, I didn't have anyone to do that with. So meeting her was really cool because it gave me an opportunity to get back into music and to attempt to do some of that stuff, which I hadn't. I mean, I've written stuff, I've done stuff, but it was never serious. But now with her, as you know, she's serious,
right?
So it was great to have that person. And honestly, I knew I was just there to just trying to help, but she was going to go on to great things. But it was really great to have someone that took it seriously, and had fun at it. And honestly, we didn't have enough time to do as much as we wanted to do, but we got a few things done.
Well, what's cool is that we have a couple songs in our catalog as our band Nomad and Lola that you co-wrote with us. So.
Yeah, but it's also funny when I hear them today, the growth of a song, if that, and I've never been part of that, right? So that was a learning experience to hear how that little seed turned into that bush. And it's like, wow, I had no idea the seed was going to have flowers. Like you don't know what it's going to grow into, and it's cool what you guys have done with it. And I find a hard time taking any credit for any of it, honestly, because you guys have taken it to an 11th level.
But that's my job as a producer, and that's what we do. So look, and that's part of the creative process. So
it is, and honestly, if I had more time not having a corporate gig, I would totally love doing that. And I'm sure I could do it. I know I could do it, right? But I still prefer supporting people who do it, and in my view, much better. You know?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to talk about that. I want to face the music here head on, so to speak. You know, the grass is always greener on the other side. And for instance, if you say, "Oh, I'm a studied musician and I went and got my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate's degree." Okay, but I'm still a musician. Versus, "Oh, I'm a studied musician, but privately tutored mostly, and I went out to do world tours and platinum and gold records and win Grammys." Well, those two people look at, "Wow, I wish I would have done what you did. Oh, I wish I would have done what you did."
Sure.
Same thing here. How many times have I said to myself, or my wife, as you know, and be like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could just go get a job at Shure like Bill," or and then you look at like us and you say, "Oh man, I wish I could just produce and make music all the time." It's like, come on.
But then you say that conversation happens in jest, I'm sure, a few times over the course of a decade, right? But
Yeah.
you come back to nah, I'm good.
I'll stay where I'm at. Yeah.
I'll stay where I'm at. Yeah. No, I mean, I've never had any regrets. I mean, I've had a lot of, not just in the music world, but in other worlds, even just taking the gig at Shure. I had very different opportunities that had nothing to do with where I am now,
Right.
that I could have taken. And, I look back on it, I thought about it, but I definitely am glad I just went with my gut. I mean, I've never had a plan. I've to this day, I don't have a plan.
I like it.
It's live in the now. Don't worry about the past. Yes, goals are important. Goals are good. They're healthy. If you don't meet your goals, that's not the end of the world, but live in the now and just do the right thing when you have it presented to you, to do the option to choose, do the right thing.
Amen to that. Live your life, because life is short, and that is not a cliche. That is legit truth, folks.
Especially this past year has proven that, man. So
That's right. All right. So shifting gears again back to Shure. What I always admired about you, because now we've become longtime friends. What I always admired about you is that you really seem to have a good grip on the technical side of gear and sonic, the art and science of sonics, as it were.
Yep.
Talk about your role as a product developer over at Shure and some of the things that you've helped develop and create.
Yeah, I mean, I was a physics student in high school and in my early days at college, so I've always been interested in physics and audio and technology not technology, but sciences of stuff. And whenever given the opportunity to play with something, I always take it. And if someone asks you, "Hey, do you know how to do this?" and it's a cool toy, I'll be like, "Well, that guy doesn't know because he's asking me. He's not asking anyone else. So at least I can do is say yes and have some time playing with it. And then after playing with it, I'll know more than he did."
See, I love that. I talk about that all the time. Take initiative, even if you don't know. Say yes and go figure it out.
And obviously, if there's a high level of risk in taking and saying yes, then maybe don't do that, because now you're going to hurt people or damage something. But if it's a low risk thing and me not doing it is worse than me doing it, then I take advantage of. So, learning how to use a digital console the first time, totally fluke thing. No one knew how to run the thing. The first time using a mixing console in general was in college. I mean, I've used little 4-channel ones. A mixing console is just those same 4 things times 58 or 48 or whatever it was, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So for technology, it's always been something I've always played with. So the way Shure came about is from the phono days. So again, I was working at a DJ store. Had the production company still going on, had the artist management company of DJs going on, was still performing as a DJ. And a gentleman from Shure, who became a mentor of mine, came up and said, "Hey, we're making this phonograph cartridge. We were talking to people around the Midwest," because Shure was in Chicago, Evanston actually, "and your name kept coming up as someone people said we should talk to. And we wanted to show you this cartridge." So they showed me this prototype drawing, basically, and I had a full store of people. Like I'm in a retail store, right? So I'm like, yeah, I got 5 minutes. So I ended up being about 20 minutes. And I was going over the thing. I was like, "What is this?" I was asking them lots of questions. They didn't know the answers. It got to the point where I felt like they were almost wasting my time, and I was getting a little annoyed. And I was just very honest with them. I was like, look, this is not, you don't understand what we as DJs need. This is not it. This doesn't look good. How is this going to perform? I'm sorry, but if I were doing this, I would change this. So if you want, come back later if you got something to show me, but I got to get back to work.
Hold on, I got to pause you right there. The fact that you had the balls to be honest and give them honest feedback.
Yeah, I did the usual thing. Like, do you want my honest opinion? Like, I asked.
Yeah, but that's so important because a lot of people would be scared to actually say the truth. And I think that's worth noting.
You can't be scared if you ask. If you ask first, hey, do you want my honest opinion? And they say yes, the responsibility of what you're about to say is no longer on you.
On you. It's on them.
It's on them. They wanted it. If they don't like what they're hearing, that's not my problem. That's now their problem.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, no bullshit, right? So did that. They left. I think maybe 3 or 4 months came back. They came back with another drawing, and it was better and still missing some things. But I was like, okay, cool. And then I honestly, I don't remember the whole thing, but I remember my mentor at the retail store, Mike Carlson, was like, he was really strong about like, make sure you tell him this, make sure you tell him that. And like, would you use that? And I was like, no, I wouldn't use that. And it's like, well, then tell him that, So I was like, I wouldn't use this thing. I know you're trying to market this to people like me. I would not use that. And here's why. And again, I went down the list. They didn't totally listen to everything. So long story short, they ended up coming back and saying, do you want to come work for us and just make this thing the way it should be? And it's a photograph cartridge, which in the scheme of things at Shure was probably like at that time 2% of their business, right? They didn't care, but they basically were like, we don't know what we're doing. We specifically want to hire you. It was a cartridge for the house music scene. So Shure was known as scratch cartridges. The cartridge that was used on a jukebox became the #1 cartridge for scratch DJs by accident through just sheer.
So you're talking about the cartridge that goes which houses the needle for the arm on the record player, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
They became the #1 cartridge for scratching because the cartridge performed well in jukeboxes when people were dancing and the jukebox was shaking and the needle would stay on the record.
Oh, look at
But
that.
the physics involved in that transferred over to someone scratching the record and having it stay in the groove. So Shure was the #1 cartridge for that product. They were trying to enter the house techno market, which I was throwing parties and raves and managing artists around.
That's right.
And they wanted to make a cartridge and they just didn't know the industry. So in the end, long story short, they offered me a gig to come down there and basically just make the thing. And at this time I had another offer at another company, which no longer is around, and pursuing my major in college, which would have had me at probably the United Nations.
Wow.
So it would have been in the public sector, working at different embassies or something like that.
Wow. Very impressive, man. Very
went down
impressive.
the Shure, and then it was off to the races. So basically for me, product management has always been, and it still is, you have to be the customer. You have to, like, I always argue when people ask, what do I do? And I go, well, if Shure were to decide tomorrow to make washing machines, having no experience in it, being an audio company, all right, my job would be to go out and buy every washing machine, set them up side by side, wash all sorts of different clothes in them, do stupid things with the washing machines, put too much soap in it, put rocks in it. My job would be to do all the things that people may or may not do to a washing machine, and then define if Shure truly wants to go against the Maytags, the Whirlpools, and the dozens of experienced washing machine manufacturers. You want a piece of that pie. This is the product you have to make. This is what it has to do. This is how much it should cost. Here's the business plan.
Yep.
Marketing, the whole shebang, the whole PPTP project, the document. I mean, it's like a 100-page document. Yeah. This is what you need to do to be in this business. That gets approved by, and it's changed now, but that gets approved by, various people who are going to commit X number of millions of dollars to make X number of millions of dollars back. And if it gets greenlit, great. Then I get assigned to a team of engineers who are supposed to make the thing I defined. Wow. And if it doesn't pass what I would, based on all so in that time frame, I became the user of a washing machine.
Right, that's right.
So think about washing machines. You've got commercial, you've got home,
Yeah.
You've got mini portables in Japan that wash and dry. You've got like the type of washing machines in the world is very diverse, and most of which Americans don't even know about.
Right.
Right. I now am that person who knows everything, and I have to then make sure that based on the goals it Shure wants, that it comes out and then is successful. And I define the product. If it doesn't pass my requirements of what I want it to do, and I play with it and test it and what I define, then it doesn't go to market.
That's right.
So
Love that.
through the phonograph product and defining that and growing through the company, and then of course getting burned out there because I was doing sales and marketing, I went on to do the artist relations thing, which was awesome for about 4 years. They pulled me back because my value was valuable going back to product management. The gentleman who pulled me back, who's also a mentor at Shure, basically had 3 open recs, and he was like, if I just hire Bill for this position, he can do all 3 of them, you know. So that brought me back, and I was off to the races. Doing actually at that time it was doing wireless, which my experience with wireless was a person using it. However, what's great about Shure at that time is they've got tons of educational books. They got tons of seminars. I sat through it all. I was hungry for that information. I want to learn about anything. I mean, I'm learning about stuff now, and like I'm getting my pilot's license. You know, like I just like to learn and do things and stay active. And as a result of doing that over my entire life, you end up having a diverse experience of things, all of which help each other in various ways of relationships,
The overlap.
operating. They all. It's so much more common than different.
Okay. We got to unpack. Hold on.
Sorry.
First, no, I love it. No, because you said so many great things. You said Rex. Your mentor over at Shure said, I have 3 Recs that have, yeah. What does a Rec stand for?
So that is like, I have these 3 positions that I need to fill with people. So they have a job rec or a requirements for a position.
Requirement.
Right?
Thank you. That's what I needed to know. Okay, yeah. Great. Number 1. Number 2, I can attest to the fact that you are a Renaissance man of many different activities and things to keep you busy. I love the fact that you're a scuba instructor, certified.
Scuba instructor now. Yeah.
You know, you're a real estate investor. You are a world traveler. Now you're going to learn how to fly planes. If I'm going to tell you folks, if anybody listening, if you're ever concerned about getting into an airplane, if I could have Bill Oakley be my personal pilot, I know I would be in good hands. I would never worry, you know, like I just know the type of character that you imbue, that you have in you. You know, it's just amazing. So, okay, but now I want to get to something else, because you said something very important. You mentioned the wireless world.
Right.
And that's actually how we ended up squeezing you in the door for the Babyface tour. It was like, hey, our wireless mics at the time were a wreck. And I was like, you know what, guys, if we bring in Bill, he's going to be able to consult in that area. He's going to fix all of the mic systems that we have.
And you guys were using a product that I had made.
That you built and designed. So then also now you're getting like a triple whammy. You're getting a front of house mix engineer, a production manager who is so meticulous and organized and responsible, and the product developer for the product that we actually need help with. Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think and look, the management of any artist is obviously doing their job to make sure that they have the best person for their artist. And I don't, hold that against anyone who's hesitant about hiring a random name.
Oh, no, right? No, not at all. I mean, going through the usual vetting process.
Yeah. So, but what's funny is that there are so many people in the industry. So again, once I was in a position of having made this stuff and in the industry relations position, I was training people. And it's funny, you'd be surprised how many people, again, management doesn't even know, but there are a lot of people who take on positions that are a little above their pay grade, and they need to learn. And a lot of that had to do with technology and wireless around microphones and the voodoo of wireless. And honestly, in the last years, as you know, the wireless industry has gotten very difficult with all the issues around it, from losing spectrum. So my position, unbeknownst to me.
Sorry, because there's so many units out there now, we're losing.
No, the spectrum, the government was selling off spectrum to the likes of T-Mobile and AT&T and forcing all the other products to squeeze into a tiny area once the introduction of digital television came around. So digital technology, both in broadcast and in the products, had to adapt. And it's honestly still a fight. The fight's not technically over because there's money involved in it. Wow. But that's a whole nother conversation. And honestly, I could put you on to much better people to talk about that.
Yeah.
But so the where was I going?
The wireless mic issue. And
Yeah. So
development.
with the mics, the people who are using it oftentimes were engineers and folk who would come to my office and I would train them on it. So unbeknownst to many management companies, a lot of the engineers who they are hiring, they get training from people or manufacturers like us or people like me. So it's funny when someone's like, well, how do you have an experience doing this? And they don't know. And the funny thing is, well, the last 7 engineers you hired were all trained by me. So why wouldn't you hire me? And I don't say that, right? And again, I never want to do that. I've got a gig. I just like to keep my fingers involved and like to help people. So that's why it worked out great for when you brought me on board, is that I wasn't taking a job away from anyone, which was
That's
really
right.
important to me.
That's right.
Right. I was trying to hold the position for someone, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the management was having their difficulty finding quality people. And road dogs are hardcore people. They've been through a lot. I could never do what road dogs do. I would never wish that on someone.
I'm so glad you said that. I got to interject. Road dogs. Hold on. We're coming back for this story in a second. All I'm going to say is one word: Milan. We'll come back to that. So continue.
So I have mad respect for the guys who do this, and it's hard. It's hard on relationships. It's hard on families. It's hard on the physical body. It's
Right.
hard on the soul. Right. It's a lot of work. I could never do that,
Right.
but I appreciate the work. I know how it's done. So to have an opportunity to come on board in the camp and do that, it just allows me to now play with the toys and do it. And I was already kind of sort of doing that. Like some of the broadcast products I was working on, some of the relationships I built with some of the people who I was, interviewing and later beta tested the product I was developing, they let me work. Like I was making a portable wireless system for movie production. I was the guy wearing the bag and the mixer, holding that pole up with my arms getting sore after, like, my arms got tired after like 15 minutes, and these guys do it for 8 hours.
That's
you
right.
know, like I get my hands dirty, and I have to do that because when you're trying to define a product to make someone's life easier and to have that USP, that unique selling point in the product compared to the large number of products that are already available in the market, and you're trying to enter the market, you got to be solving problems. You can't just be a me too. So
Right.
there's no better way to do that than experience the day in the life. And there's a whole psychology and researching and doing observational research, interview research. People always say, I want X. Oh, what do you do when you do this task? Oh, I do ABC. Okay, write it down. Then like the next day I'll go watch them. They don't do ABC. They think they do ABC, but in reality, they're doing DEF. So had I just stopped after that interview and went home with that information and designed a product around ABC, it never would have met the person's need.
That's a good point.
So being in that person's shoes, even if I can do it 10% of what they're doing, that all helps in trying to, live the life and design around their needs, because, that's who they're doing it. And while I may have worked with many artists, I'm not designing products for the artist, but artist meaning, the name everyone knows. It's the people behind that artist who I am designing for. And by designing it for them, they look good. The artist looks good. Everyone looks good.
Right. That's right.
And so it's funny when you're talking to management who clearly don't know what I do. That's fine. And coming onto a camp and being there as production manager, I technically wasn't in charge of the wireless. That's the monitor engineer's job. But it was so great to talk to those guys, and we had such a great time talking tech, because now they were asking me questions. I was doing wireless 101, 102, 103 classes with them during our setup and sound checks, and like they and I still to this day get call from all those guys, and it's great to be able to be of service and help to people, because who else are they going to get it from?
That's so awesome. I love that. I love that. Okay, now it's time for us to reminisce. Do you remember Milan, Italy?
Yes, that was fun.
You mentioned road dogs, and I just want to say, career musicians out there who have toured, we know you can identify with this. We got the call. At the time, I was the MD for Kat Graham, who is one of the actors on The Vampire Diaries, but she also has a music career. Fantastic artist, singer, dancer, writer. Yeah. And she called Lola, because Lola was doing the tour managing, and said, "Hey, I need to have a band for Fashion Week in Milan,
In
right?
like 4 weeks
And it was coming up in 4 weeks,
or
and
something. Yeah.
I want Nomad to be the band leader, and we need to put it together, and we need to make it happen." So immediately we got off the phone with her, and we jumped on the phone with you. We said, "Bill, let's put a package together. Actually, Bill, you were the production manager, the tour manager, the front of house engineer, the monitor engineer, and everything else that you can think of."
Yeah.
And then I was the MD and guitar player. But here's the crazy part. We flew over there for one fucking day.
Hmm.
We put a band together, an Italian-based band that were all Italian musicians there.
Which, by the way,
Kicked
were amazing.
ass. Weren't they amazing?
I mean, I thought some of the cats, and there's very few cats I know in LA that can hold the water of the cats you put together in Italy.
Yeah. Well, I can't take all the credit for that. I have to give a shout out to Alex Alessandroni, my good Italian brother over here in LA. He put me in touch with Christian Michelini, I think it is, and then between Christian and myself, we ended up, casting the whole band. And man, what a bunch of talented people, both men and women, fantastic. And
You know what the you know what the craziest thing that sticks with me about that experience?
Yeah.
They were so shocked to show up for the sound check rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
And be paid.
Yes, that's right.
Like, I was actually confused.
That's right, because we handed them envelopes of money. Didn't you do that? You were in charge of that.
We paid them.
Yeah,
And they were like, you're paying us now before we work? Like, it was foreign to them.
That's right.
You know.
Oh, I love that. That's right. Yes, because you were also the tour treasurer.
But that's also how I mean, I don't know for other. I mean, again, I have limited experience in even the U.S. industry, but the people I've worked with and how I operate, even all the way back to my college production days, is I pay people up front.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, yes, there's deposits, yes, there's other other contractual things, but in the end of it, when it comes to a musician you're paying cash to, when they show up, pay them.
Yeah.
And honestly, evidently that I mean, I don't have experience in the difficulties of getting paid. I know a lot of people can speak on that.
Well,
but evidently it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and I will say this: anytime I've worked with an A+ outfit, okay, or an A+ team, like the Babyface team, oftentimes you would get the auto deposit before you left for the airport.
Before you get to the airport.
Yeah. So if we left on a Thursday, morning to go out and do a weekend run, by Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, the money would be deposited into my account. And that is a beautiful thing, because now what you're doing is you're setting team morale, right?
It's a trust thing as well.
Yeah, the trust, and everybody's happy. And you get to the airport and you're headed out to the gigs. Oh man, we got the money. My family's at home. My husband and wife is at home. They got the money. They're happy. They're not fretting or freaking out while I'm gone for the weekend. It just sets the tone.
Yeah, it does. And look, worrying about finances, which everyone has to do, some more than others in their life, but it's not an enjoyable thing.
No. So yeah. And anyway, that's a great point that you brought up. But what a good example of a road dog gig. And I mean, we're talking. We flew in. Geez, I literally flew in the night before. Got to Italy early in the morning. Slept for a few hours, showed up at sound check probably around noon. You flew in a day ahead of me.
Correct.
to advance all of the gear and to check out the room. And we were right there in the middle of Fashion Week. Boy, what a fun experience.
I mean, it was a lot of work for 45 minutes, but when is it not like that? I mean, that was textbook of fly in, fly out. It was just a smaller production of people and a bunch of strangers. Well, they weren't strangers. The band knew each other, but
But it was like an 8 or 9 piece band. We had horns.
But think about the trust that they had to have in you or your friend in like, you didn't know they were going to show up.
Right, that's right.
I mean,
but see, it all comes down to relationship and trust. I trusted Alex because I knew his level of professionalism
And who
wasn't
we
gonna
worked
steer me
with. Yeah.
wrong. Yeah. And he and I met working with Natalie Cole. So I knew that if he's with
Oh
Natalie,
man,
you
don't even
know,
get me started on Natalie Cole.
yeah, I mean,
Oh man,
what a sweetheart. God rest her soul.
she was, my second or third day at Shure in the office, arts relations office. She
Yeah.
was rehearsing, I think, next door, and
Yeah.
she came in and she just hung out.
So
So
awesome.
Natalie Cole and Sheila E. basically adopted me after I came to LA. That's what it
Wow.
felt like. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
But yeah, it's so important to treat people with that respect and develop that trust and cultivate those relationships because you're only as good as your reputation can hold.
Yeah, and honestly, with the way, I mean, again, knowing, it's as superficial as it is to pay them up front, but the fact that they were so appreciative of that, I mean, it gave, because they were taking some risk too, showing up at the show, not knowing who this Mike, who this Nomad is, what kind of name is Nomad? Nomad, is it Nomad or is it Nomad? I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. I'm sure they were having conversations in Italian over drinks, definitely over drinks.
Well, and we went and had drinks after sound check, remember?
Oh,
On the little patio. Oh, it was so
I didn't know how to, I forgot what they were, but I never had them before. But now that was like my favorite drink for like 6 months later.
I can't remember either. They were so good though.
but so that trust was, everyone was taking a risk.
Yeah.
I think I appreciated, thinking back on it, having to pay them up front, knowing that, thank you for being here. Here you go, sign here. Here's what's going on. What do you need? Like, I don't know if you noticed when you got there, but they were ready. They were cool.
They were ready to go.
Because that stress was gone and they were there to work, and they worked.
Absolutely.
And now thinking about it, and that's why we hung out so often, because you had made a team of like-minded, just regular good musicians, good people, and it proved itself after hanging out afterwards. With what was her name? Christina Vigilante, remember? Who was it? The woman that hung out afterwards. I can't remember, but anyways, it was a great team, and that I think that if we could just take those people and take that moment and reproduce it a few times, it would be a great thing.
And how about at the end when Kat was like, "Oh, hey, we need to reproduce the concert, but backstage this time because I have some fans that went to the wrong venue." Remember that?
Yeah, I don't think you've ever. I can't imagine the look on my face when you told me that.
We basically did the whole concert again backstage for about a dozen or so fans.
Yeah.
That somehow got transported to the wrong venue. Again, my whole point is, and this triggered it when you said road dog, because a true road dog knows the rigors of the road. And guess what the answer is always? Yes. Can you do X? Yes. Can you do X, Y? Yes. Can you do X, Y, Z? Yes, yes, yes.
So I would agree with that, but I would actually say the proper answer is it depends.
Yeah.
I think before you say yes, you say it depends, and then I mean that's the joke in music, in audio.
I like it. I like it. All right. On that note, all puns intended. Are you ready for some rapid fire?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. You can't think too long.
Oh crap.
Here we go. Top 3 artists in your playlist.
Okay, I got to stop you right there.
Oh, damn it.
So I knew you were going to do this. I've listened to your podcast enough. I knew you were going to do this. Okay, so have you asked yourself these questions? I mean,
I can tell you right now. You ready? Okay, Van Halen, real estate investing podcasts and books. And my own catalog, so that way I can reference my mixes.
If you were to ask me this question yesterday or tomorrow, it'd probably be different answers, because I mean, I just actually finished backing up my home NAS here with 40 terabytes of music. I have too much stuff.
Bragger.
Well, hey, I had to archive all my vinyl that I had when I had like 40,000 records, and I'm still got 8,000 left to archive.
Bragger. So you're telling me you have 48,000 records? Oh my God.
Well, no, I don't anymore. But at one point when I moved to Chicago, I had a U-Haul trailer of vinyl, and I had my Jetta of my personal belongings. That's what I moved to Chicago with.
Bragger. Okay, but wow,
that's not a thing to be proud of.
That's impressive.
It's not a thing to be proud of.
That's impressive.
It's
All right,
it's
all
a,
right,
it's
all right.
it's
Let
a
me just
problem.
say,
I got help.
you got to.
But okay, so
Hey,
I'm
you
gonna go
had
more.
you didn't
So for
have.
me, it's genre based. So Toots and the Maytals, reggae. I gotta have reggae at any given point in the day. There is some
Yep.
kind of reggae, even if I'm beatboxing it myself. I gotta have it. I gotta go with Morris Day, and I'm gonna go with Mendelssohn.
Love it. Oh, great,
So
great
that is,
variety.
I mean, in a given day, that is all happening. I mean, my playlist of stuff. My favorite thing is because of that much music on my NAS is to hit play and random on my iTunes that's hooked up to it, and I'll never hear the same song twice in my lifetime.
Okay, can you speak English this time? What is NAS?
NAS is a home server. I have a home, cloud basically down in the basement. So it's a 100 terabyte multi-drive thing that I use for backing up all my stuff. So
Okay, we got to talk about that off the show
goes back
because
to my technology thing, my
yes,
freelancing as an IT person.
yes, I need that. I need that IT love because I do have to. I want my own dedicated server for what I do here with all of my music.
Yeah, I don't pay the cloud people. I just do it myself. And then I have other people who have NASs and we do a redundant backup following the 3-2-1 rule of backup. So all my stuff is secure. So
What does NAS stand for?
oh crap. Now you're testing me.
All right, don't worry about it. We'll come back
Yeah.
to that. All
I
right,
should
all right.
actually I should know that, but I don't.
Okay, you totally demolished the whole rapid fire concept.
Okay.
Okay, no more taking long. You ready? Instrument you wish you played.
Um Trumpet.
Favorite food.
Curry.
Favorite city.
Seriously? Oh, damn.
Well, mine's New York, New York. I'm from New York, but I still love New York.
Yeah.
Manhattan.
I'm from the honestly my favorite
Chi-Town?
man, I've been to like
I know we
87 countries.
I know. I know. You've actually been to more countries than I have.
I'm gonna pick Tokyo.
Love Tokyo. Good answer. Good answer. Good answer, Bill. Good answer. Everybody's clapping on Family Feud. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Song or band that changed your life?
Oh shit, I'd say probably one of my first concerts. It was REM and Cranberries.
Like it. Last concert you attended but did not work?
Peter Gabriel and Sting.
I like that. Friends would say you are.
Working too much.
I can attest to that. I agree about you. Boardroom, studio, or stage?
Ooh. Studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hidden talents.
Well, I don't. People call me. I have some friends that say I'm a James Bond between all the things I can do and the firearms training I have and crap like that. So
Yes, you're like a MacGyver. Yeah, James Bond meets
yeah,
MacGyver. Yeah.
yeah.
All
I
right,
wish it was like that.
drink of choice.
Oh, I would have to go with a good rum and coke.
Okay. Name 3 tour essentials. You can't leave home without it. I don't care if you're going out with Shure or if you're going out with an artist or whatever.
Yeah. Good flashlight that you can push with the palm of your hand. I always have handy wipes because I always end up, I don't have gloves, so I always get dirty. So I got to wash my hands after I help and pull cables or something like that. And I got to have my earbuds and music.
There you go. Yeah. We're in the entertainment industry. It's our job to entertain others. What entertains you?
I honestly do a lot of what I do because I love watching other people do what they do. Like I really like being behind the people who do what they do because I could never do that. I'd love to do that. I could never do it. So I really enjoy watching them do it and get joy out of it. So, seeing guys like you on stage really in the moment and being able to help bring that moment, that's all into entertainment, I need enjoyment. So I like the end of a good project, when it all comes together, it's all the reward one needs.
I agree. There's nothing like after the end of a night of putting on a great show, and we all, hang out at the bar or in someone's room or whatever, and it's just like, wow, that was a good one. We did it.
You may have cussed the entire day and night about it.
That's right.
But when it's done, you're like, oh, that was great.
What a relief. I always say the best part of a show is the end. When it's over.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Italy, it was supposed to be over. Then you brought on a different kind of encore. So
that's right. All right. Dream collaboration.
In collaboration in what?
Anything. I don't care. You want to dive with Jacques Cousteau, or you want to perform, or you want to mix a show for Sting. I don't care.
Wow.
You never thought about that, huh?
I never thought about that, actually. I would like, how about being a fly on the wall? Can I tweak that?
Okay.
Because I've met a lot of, like, in my job, as you can imagine, I've met a lot of people, and I've only been starstruck like once. But I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
That's when you met me. You were starstruck.
Speaking of being paid, I haven't received that payment to say yes. So I'm going to hold my answer. I think being a fly on the wall around, like in the studio with like Herbie Hancock.
Oh, there you go. I like that. Yeah. I like that. All right. And finally, the proverbial drum roll here. What would you do if you were not in this music business as a career musician?
Well, I can track it back to two decisive paths that I didn't take. One would have been working on nuclear submarines as a nuclear engineer.
I should have figured you were going to come with one of those big, crazy answers like that.
Well, and while I didn't do that, I did get to drive a nuclear submarine for a period of time, and got to be on it for a week. So I've been there. Another story.
Listening audience, Bill is the guy that, like, if you can dream it and fathom it, he's done it.
An opportunity to go on a sub is when I was 14 for 8 days, and got to do both the bow planes and the dive planes for 2 full shifts. It was pretty sweet. So I was supposed to go down that path, didn't do it. I was supposed to go into the public affairs with the United Nations stuff, and didn't do it. But honestly, I think I would like to be the guy who was doing like wilderness tours, just being out away from all people, all noise, and I get outside a lot, camping and doing stuff since Boy Scout days, but I really would want to be like that guy just working in the mountains of Colorado.
Okay. So my wife just surprised me this morning. She got a free hiking pack and lantern kit with all the accoutrement that goes with on the Facebook free group. I forget what they call it. The buy nothing group, right?
Okay.
And people just trade goods. And I said to myself, I was taking a shower. I was like, man, that was really cool that Lola got that for me. I was like, if only I had a guide that can take me out on a proper hike and teach me the ways of the land. Guess what, buddy? You just signed yourself up for that.
Dude, love it. I've been there, done that. I've been dropped in the middle of nowhere and had to survive in both winter and summer in the middle of Canada. I can do it all. Yeah.
I can't wait. We got to do that, bro. Seriously, we have to plan that.
Yeah. How are you at fishing and hunting?
Awful.
All right.
but I'm a hard worker, so you can attest to that. So
yeah. I mean, I don't think I would do the things Bear Giles did, because there's a limit. I have a limit.
Yeah. No, I won't do those things. No, hell no. And let me say, I love that show, and I love those type of shows as well. I mean, that's pretty cool shit. Yeah.
I won't do that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And you know what? I forgot to ask, this isn't rapid fire, but I always like to ask all of my guests, because, through life, we have different definitions of it, but I think it all leads to the same road at the end of the day. How do you define success?
Well, I mean, I think regardless of what one does, whether it's a musician or, finance guy or a realtor or whatever, is you got to be doing something you enjoy. I'm at a point, honestly, in my career where I don't enjoy it as much as I used to. And I think when you get involved in the politics of anything you enjoy, it kind of sucks the joy out of it. You know, there's a value to being the low man on the totem pole. There's a type of naivete that really allows you to stay in that world of blissness and happiness. So as long as you can find some way of being happy, I think that means you've been successful. And it's hard.
Man,
It's a whole separate set of work just by itself to be happy.
I love that. I love that. That's a great definition. And you're absolutely right. Boy, it is easy to get burnt out in an industry, isn't it?
You can be burnt out doing a lot of things that you're good at and you love doing. And I mean, I've burned out multiple times in things I enjoy doing.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You just fill it with something else that you enjoy. Like, for example, if it wasn't for COVID, I never would have picked up my interest in avionics and flying and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I'm getting older and can't do some of the other things I want to do, you know, so nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. I mean, you know, I love working at the company at Shure. It's a great place. I love being able to say I was involved in certain things, but you know, when you've been doing it for a long time, you move up the chain and now you're privy to things that you weren't privy to before, information wise. Sometimes you just wish you didn't know.
Yeah. Oh boy, there is some unlit ammo in that statement right there.
Well, every company is great. Sure, I mean, it's not a diss on Shure, right? It's just,
No,
you know.
no, I wasn't even thinking about Shure. I was just thinking about in general. I was thinking about all the stuff that I know about things.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you there are things that people just wish they didn't know, you know.
Oh yeah.
But and for me, I replace that with learning new things. You know, learning other. I control the things I want to learn, and when I learn about things I don't want to, I wish I didn't learn about, I quickly forget them and
that's right.
Don't even think twice about it.
You refocus that energy. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I love it. Bill
But
Oakley.
it's work.
It is, but man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Cool.
And hey, where can folks find you if they want to dig up more? Because I know you're not a big social media guy.
Yeah, I got duped into social media because it was a way for me to get photos of my goddaughter when she was living in Japan. This thing called Facebook I thought was a photo sharing site. Yeah.
You are on Facebook, okay?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to do less of it. But yeah, Oakley B, I think is my Instagram. I should probably know this stuff, but I don't. Otherwise, you know, Bill Oakley, not the guy with the sunglasses, not the guy from The Simpsons. And yeah, I'm at Shure. Unfortunately, I can't help you much in the world I'm in now. I'm not in pro audio anymore, so I moved on to other complicated things. But always willing to talk about it. Always willing to give my 2 cents. You know, I like talking tech. I like learning.
I love it. You should do a podcast, Talking Tech with Bill Oakley.
I think that's a name that someone has definitely taken.
I'm sure. Tech, but you could be like talking tech, aviation, scuba diving. I mean, there's so many things, you know.
And, you know, look, I am not I want to just be clear. I do not know everything about any of the things we've talked about. It's not about knowing 100% of it. It's knowing enough to be dangerous. It's knowing enough to be confident. It's knowing enough to be able to do something with it. Right.
I love that.
And when and with that, know your limits. Mm-hmm. And when you hit that point, don't be afraid to call for help and get the person who actually knows the 100%.
That's right.
But don't oversell yourself. Don't overpromise, underdeliver. Don't do that. Under promise, over deliver.
Deliver. Always good words of wisdom right there. All right. So, Bill, something that's really important when it comes to artist relations, you know, as somebody who wants to approach you for using the gear that you represent, how should they do so? Yeah,
I think irrespective of the brand, you need to ask yourself, is this a product and a brand that I want to use and believe in, you know, and be truthful about that. Because I think any good industry relations person is going to look for that and notice that. So, you know, like you mentioned earlier, don't come in just asking for gear. Come in with your resume, you know, here's the artist I work for. If you're an MD, you have influence, right? So what influence do you have, if any, on people using certain gear?
That's right.
What do you do outside of that gig? For example, if you donate your time, teaching kids at the local Boys and Girls Club, right? You're an influencer in building more musicians. What are those people? More customers of products in the music industry, right? Not that it's directly related, but the point is you are contributing back to and doing things that are clearly going to grow the industry and grow yourself. So it depends on the brand. It depends on the artist relations or industry relations person individually. But think about the gear you're asking for, and there's a dollar value, right?
That's right.
Do your research, and then do the research in the company and find out what's important to that company, and find a way that you can bring value to justify what you're asking for. I'm not saying you got to justify $20,000 of gear that month, but it's a long-term relationship. So maybe you just justify $20,000 of gear for over 5 years, because an endorsement is not just a one-time thing. There's usually a contract, there's a period of time, there's 2 years, and find a way that you can bring something to do for them. And again, if you appreciate the brand and you love the brand, I think of the people who are all about Apple or all about Tesla, right? They'll do anything for Apple and Tesla. Right. You need to be so faithful to that product or that brand that you'd be willing to do, almost anything within, your abilities to provide something to the table, and honestly, you don't have to be a big name. You don't have to be a big name. And you've interviewed many artists I've worked with and helped. And while they have never been on the cover of Rolling Stone, I guarantee you, because I know these people, they have spoke positively and about Shure and about the products that they already liked from Shure. And I just helped them keep using the products they already liked from Shure.
That's right. I love that.
And they're still doing it. I mean, I'm not even in that position today, and I still talk to them, right?
Right. And put together a really good press kit, like you mentioned, a really good.
Yeah, and the press kit can't just be the same when you give any, just do the research about the brand. It's kind of like the people who are trying to it's not the same thing, but it's close to people who are trying to get sponsorship for their concert or their event, and they're pitching big names like Ford or Hilton. Like, they make the same bullet point deck and they give it the same one to Hilton and Ford. They don't have the same needs.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
So you really need to make it specific and personal. And honestly, I don't even need to see a deck. I mean, yes, I would say bring the people you work with, your history, show that you actually are a working musician, right. Show that you are a gig person, but also, show me what else you're doing that is different, like teaching at the local schools or boys. I mean, that's great. I mean, I love providing product to charities that are doing things to make more musicians,
Yeah.
And Shure supports that as well.
That's perfect. Well said. So now, those listening, if you really want to, use a particular product, do the homework, do your research, and prepare for it. And then, go ahead and reach out. Don't be shy, right?
Don't be shy. And even if you don't get anything, have the relationship, because there are lots of people who I could not, because of my budget I mentioned, or because of the limited whatever, I could not give something to. But if they had a problem with the product that they bought and it broke, absolutely, I can loan you something to keep you whole.
Right.
And get your product repaired for you. That doesn't cost me anything.
And see, that's amazing. That's amazing. And that kind of service right there just really galvanizes the relationship and that trust factor, like you said.
Yeah. What is it you really want? Do you really want free gear? Or do you just want to have that relationship with someone, with a brand you believe in and a product that you need for your job?
I definitely want the latter, for sure.